Welcome to Vital Mentality Radio. I'm your host, Angel Munro. We're talking all things health and wellness, and we're looking at ways to live a vital life. Short disclaimer, this is not intended as medical advice. This is just for general purposes only. So today we're doing something a little bit different where I've got a special guest, Sophia Baraldi, and I've got her in to talk about birth and pregnancy from a terrain perspective, and specifically GBS, which is something she's worked on extensively, which is short for Group Strep B. I'm going to use that acronym as we go through. Sophia Baraldi is the co-owner of a terrain-based health store, and she's also an educator. She does webinars and group circles around terrain theory, free birthing, post and prenatal care from a terrain perspective. So welcome, Sophia.
Thank you so much.
Sorry?
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. We kind of connected on Instagram. I guess we have the same perspective in health. She has a really good Instagram page called Raw Milk and Honey, and then your shop page is Shop Raw Milk and Honey. Is that right?
Yeah.
So definitely go and check both of those out. I thought I'd give a little bit of a quick rundown about terrain theory. I think most people that listen probably already know this already, but just for those that don't. And I just think it's important for us to have a little bit of a framework, because this is the perspective that we're going to be coming from in this conversation. So there's basically two schools of thought. There's allopathic, conventional medicine, and that's that germs, genes, and bad luck are the cause of disease. And then there's the terrain model, which is basically your inputs, your diet, your movement, how much sun, fresh air, all of those things that you're getting, and especially important in this day and age, how many toxins are coming into the body. That really affects the terrain. And then germs, genes, bad luck, they don't really apply to terrain medicine. And if you did apply them, it would be as a result of the terrain that you're the one that's caring for. And then there's this third school of thought, which I think lots of Chinese medicine, naturopaths, nutritionists, integrative doctors, they fall into this third camp where there's a combination of those two. So it's all of the things that I said, how much you're caring for your body, how much you're caring for your inner terrain. I think I forgot to add emotional health into that before, but that's included as well. But then they kind of revert back to germs, genes, bad luck when things go awry. And I think you and I are definitely firmly in the camp of terrain, right? And this argument, which I think this kind of scientific argument, I think people aren't aware it's been going on for at least 100 years, if not longer. And every time there's like something kind of big in the collective that happens, it spikes up again. And the last spike, I would say, was during all of the lockdowns and the COVID era that we had. It's always feels like a couple of years ago, but I think it's nearly 5 years, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Wild, or 6 since it started. And so what happened, which was really amazing from this conversation on whether illness is terrain based or the allopathic model of germs, genes, bad luck, has really heated up. And we had a lot of doctors and practitioners and researchers going back to the foundational science of all of these things that we hold as truths, to see if there was actually the validity there that we assume to be. And what they found over and over and over is that it just wasn't there. And this was the focus at the time, obviously, was on virology. But I think what's happened in the last several years since is that all these different practitioners now are starting to apply that same kind of discernment in really, checking that foundational science to whatever it is that they practice. And I've certainly tried to do that with nutrition and natural medicine. And what I've loved seeing Sophia applying that to pregnancy. And I don't think I've seen anyone do that in the same way as you. So That's why I thought it'd be such a great opportunity to explore, because the more we can apply this, I think the better everyone's health is. So that's my motivation. Anyway, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was in that whole during COVID, I found out about the terrain theory.
Yeah.
And I think it was a Tom Cowan video, and it really struck like really um it really resonated with me. I don't know why, but I didn't have a lot of attachment to the germ theory like other people do.
Yeah,
And at
same.
that time, it clicked. It clicked to me. I started looking into it. Um, and I started posting about it on Facebook and Instagram. And I was getting like all friends from school that were like studying biology and that messaging and being like, like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, it seems so simple to me. But I think it's because I wasn't indoctrinated. Like, I didn't go to university to study biology or anything. So for me, it just seemed really obvious. And so that was a huge thing for me to have to start arguing. So I kind of got thrown into it without really me wanting to argue about it. I thought it was obvious, shared it, and then I ended up arguing with people. And so I had to look a bit deeper to make sure that everything I was saying was actually accurate. So through my pregnancy and birth of my first daughter, I knew that because I had such different opinions about the germ theory, I knew the regular system wasn't for me. So I chose to go through a midwife. And so I refused a lot of the testing and I did things sort of on my own terms. And then with my second pregnancy with the twins, so I had surprise twins. So I did a free birth. I didn't know I was having twins. And surprise, surprise, a second baby came out.
That's so amazing.
So with that pregnancy, I didn't have any scans either or any testing. And so going through that process and being in all of like the Facebook groups, the free birth, home birthing groups on Facebook and on Instagram, I noticed a lot of times GBS would come up for people, even though they were naturally minded or they were home birthing or even free birthing, they still had this fear and they wanted to get rid of the GBS naturally. So that's a big topic in these groups is like, some people are inserting like garlic, doing garlic suppositories. I don't know if that's the term for it, but they're inserting garlic. They're trying to eat probiotics. So basically they're trying to kill the bad bacteria, the GBS.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they've been recommended to get the test. So they thought this is a harmless test. I'm just going to get it done and be on my way. But what happens is it comes back positive. And then they go, okay, so now that it's come back positive, I'm a bit worried about this because they're telling me that my baby might get sick if I don't do something about it. And then they're in a bit of a stuck place. Like they never really believed in it or cared until they got the positive test. Then they're a bit stuck because in that system, you can't have a positive, that they might say, well, now that you've had a positive test, we're going to recommend that you go on antibiotics for this. So then they're like, oh, what do I do? How do I get rid of this naturally? I'm trapped. I don't want to take antibiotics. So I think this is a really good thing to look into before that happens. Get a really good idea of like, what do you believe about this so you don't get trapped in a situation where you're basically going off fear that you're not doing the right thing, fear that you might harm your baby. It's all based on fear. So I guess the presentation that I came up with for GBS was to get rid of the fear. Let's look at the actual information that's out there. Does it make sense? Let's go to the actual studies themselves because there is a lot of opinions on GBS in the alternative home birthing space, but none of them touch on the actual foundational papers. It's more talking about, basically the thing with GBS is, this is what they say, it's transient. So it changes based on the environment. So you might have GBS, you might test positive for GBS 1 week, and then the next week you're negative. So this is like a common thing in the alternative pregnancy birth world is people know that it's transient and it could change at any moment, but they still think it's a problem. Does that make sense? They still think if it's there, I still need to take all of the precautions.
The interesting thing about it too is that even in the allopathic model, they say that GBS is benign's not the right word. It's harmless, basically.
Most times it's harmless, they'll say.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden, when you give birth, then it's a problem. So it's funny that Like even it's just funny from people coming from a natural perspective. Like, how do you think that it just switches into something that's pathogenic? Yeah, doesn't even make sense, that theory, right?
That's right. And so that's exactly where they leave it off. Like that's where they kind of leave it up to you in a lot of these alternative I mean, it's funny because it's not really alternative. It's in the research that's there, right? Like if you go and look up GBS, you'll find all of this, that it's transient, that most of the time pregnant women will have no symptoms. It's usually no issue, right?
Yeah.
So what these people that are in the alternative health space, alternative birth space are saying is,
this is this third group that I was talking about initially,
right?
That kind of does the combination. Yeah.
It's a combination. It's like, look, it's up to you. It's not as scary as what they say. Here are the stats, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. That's really good. And that gets people thinking like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like it's not as dangerous. Like, do I really need the antibiotics? But it does leave a group of people who are quite fearful and that are like, well, I don't want to take any chances. What if this is the time that this bacteria causes disease? I need to make sure I'm going to take the antibiotics, right?
Yeah.
So I saw that I saw that and I thought I really need to, I knew based on, like I'm sure you did as well, you started looking into measles and chickenpox and all of these, like they're viruses, but you realize that a lot of the ways that they do this science, they repeat the same broken methods every time.
Yeah.
And so I knew, like, based on the statistics for GBS, that most people have it and are not sick. I knew that the methodology for these papers were going to be the same. So I knew when I had the chance to look into it and come up with some sort of, I did an ebook and a webinar. So I knew that when I got the information together that it would be really easy to see this.
You weren't shocked.
No, I wasn't shocked. I was shocked actually by some of the things because, when you look at it and you're like, how on earth do they think that this makes any sense? Because I saw over and over, we'll talk about some of the things, some of the papers, but I knew that this was going to be the case, that it's just the same as every other bacteria and they're using the same methods. So I don't know if you want me to talk a little bit about that and go a bit more deep into how are they actually showing, that GBS causes disease?
Yeah, let's do that in a second. I think I wanted to go through a couple of other things first. So when did they start doing this? Because I've got two children. I've got a nearly 29-year-old and a nearly 18-year-old. And for the first child, I did go to a birthing center and I don't remember it ever being brought up. It's obviously a very long time ago now. And then for the second one, I didn't go to the hospital at all, no scans, no nothing. And so I'm not sure if I just missed it and that they were testing then. But is it a recent thing?
Actually, I'm not sure if it's recent or not. I didn't look that up, but I know, like, it's funny because I'm in the alternative health space. I know a lot of people do reject they just say, I don't want to get that test done. So you can reject it. A lot of people don't get it done. I think it's the people that get asked to take it and they think it's meaningless and then they take the test and then they get a little bit stuck
in hot water.
They've gotten themselves in a situation.
And it's not standardized. It's not even all hospitals will ask you for it, will they? But some
I don't think so.
Yeah. And so do you know what we've touched on it a little bit? What's the standard testing for GBS?
Oh, I think it's a swab. Is that?
Sorry. The treatment.
Oh, the treatment. Yeah. So for women, if you're testing positive for GBS 35 to 37 weeks, people usually get tested around that time.
Yeah.
Once you're tested positive, they will recommend that you go on antibiotics while you're giving birth, like through labor.
Intravenously,
so
right?
Yeah, that's a massive thing. Like, it's not just, to me, honestly, it's not really the antibiotics. I mean, that's a whole topic on its own, but it's being connected to something. It's also the idea that you're dangerous, like your body is dangerous and could potentially harm your baby. Like, it's just this whole belief system that I feel is so the opposite of how it really is. And I think that's the most damaging thing.
Severs the connection a little bit, doesn't it?
What's that? Sorry?
It severs the connection, connection that you have that empowerment that you have, that you're the person, I mean, you're the mother bringing birth into the world. And I think when you start adding all of these fear-based things that are totally unnecessary, and that's the point, like if they were necessary, fine, but then what we're finding is they're completely unnecessary. It is interfering with your own intuition, your own connection, this beautiful natural process that's kind of sacred, and that is stripped away with these kind of interventions. But I think I just wanted to add about antibiotics just quickly. Like you said, it's a massive topic, but we have more bacteria on and in our body than we do tissues and cells. And it's not an insignificant thing to go in and start wiping out bacteria, especially for children and babies who are coming into the world, forming their like bacterial kind of life that forms their life while they're coming through the canal. And even in the allopathic model, in their own science, there is links with GBS that I can see that could affect, because you're disrupting the microbiome, lots of different areas in health. And it's understood, whether it's natural medicine or allopathic medicine, it's well understood now that your microbiome, if it is out of balance, it affects like every area. Like we're talking neurological, behavioral, gut, immune, like the list goes on and on and on. So it's not a small thing, I think, that intervention, is it?
No, it's definitely not. Yeah.
And did you know of any other risks? That I mentioned a couple that come about from that kind of treatment?
I actually don't know. I'm sure like lots of things come to my mind. I guess my thing is just more that the belief that you can just take an antibiotic and just kill this specific bacteria, that does any good. That's a really horrible belief.
There's no specificity
yes.
in antibiotics. None. I think people think that there is, but there isn't. It just wipes everything out. And I'm nearly 48, and I've had one lot of antibiotics intravenously, and I was out of it. I don't even remember saying, yeah, I'll have the antibiotics. So I was out of it with pneumonia in the hospital. And 48 is a long time to not have antibiotics. And I'm just, it's possible. And I still get, and it's not like I'm lucky, I don't get sick. I get sick just as often as anyone else. And yeah, you survive it. Anyway.
I'm the same. Yeah. I've had like so many ear infections, quote unquote, strep throat, horrible. Like I've had heaps of really crazy stuff, but what I notice is at the peak of the illness, when I feel like I cannot handle this anymore, after that, that's it. That's the end of the illness. It'll just totally be better the next day. So
all of these things are self-limiting. Acute illnesses are self-limiting. Even serious acute illnesses, they do resolve. And I think that there is just always this fear that it can turn into something serious. But even in the literature, even serious acute illness does actually resolve itself, and often just as well on its own, whether or not you have antibiotics. And the science is usually in favor of people not having antibiotics, even though it's so widely used. Anyway, so let's start talking about the papers that you found with GBS. What kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, so the earliest papers were very much point and declare. So the researcher was finding women, pregnant women who had just given birth, and postpartum they were getting sick. And in the one paper that I talk about in my webinar, it's 3 women who got really, really sick. They all had really different illnesses, but what the doctor found was when he went into the pus or when he went into the blood, depending on the woman, he would find GBS there. So this was like one of the first papers, and that was it.
They all deceased as well, all the women already?
I don't know if they all died or not. I'll have to check on that. But it was interesting. Like one had it in their lungs, the pus of the lungs, and then another lady had totally different symptoms and it was in her blood. Like they were all really different, which I found interesting. The symptoms were not the same at all. And so yeah, the
just
first
random illnesses.
I guess because it was postpartum. Because it was postpartum, they were saying, okay, these are linked, like there's something going on here with postpartum women.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. And I was like, I can't believe that they're trying to draw the link of causation here, because all they're doing is finding the bacteria and saying that it's causing it, right? So that was it. And then after that, you get into the animal models. So with the animal models, what they were doing is they're getting back the GBS bacteria, and they're injecting it into mice. And they're injecting a huge amount of GBS bacteria, not something that we would be being introduced to naturally. And with GBS, obviously the way they would say that you'd contract it would be, I guess, if it comes into contact with your skin, your vagina, like those types of methods. But with these mice, they're just injecting it straight into their bloodstream.
Into the tail and all random spots.
So, number one, they're mice. So we're not mice, we're humans. Number two, they're using the method of injection, which that to me is completely inaccurate, because there's tons of different things you could inject into somebody that will make them sick. It doesn't even have to be bacteria. Like it could be poisons or water. Like I don't know what types.
There's so many things that when it goes through a regular route, whether you're breathing it in or eating it, that are completely fine for you, and as soon as you start injecting it, it's a problem. Like it's a completely different route. It goes through completely different lot of safeguards when you're digesting something to when something goes straight into the blood.
For sure. So that was obviously a massive
issue. It's oranges and apples, really, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. And this is the issue with all of the studies, the scientific studies that they do with bacteria. This is how they do them, through animal models. So this is the issue that people are finding when they're looking into the germ theory and whether it has any substantial evidence. They go into these animal models and they see that there's so many issues. There's so many issues with these studies, and it's the same with GBS again. They're doing the same thing. So this is how they're drawing these conclusions.
I wondered too what the solution was, that because it's not just straight. You can't just have straight bacteria. It would have to be in something.
I did look at that a while ago when I was first looking at these studies, but I can't remember. I'll have to read into it again.
Because when they do the viral studies, they do the cell culture and there's antibiotics and all of these other things in there that would cause like tissue damage. So and there's no way that you can just have bacteria as it is. So that's always something to note, like what else is going in that injection.
For sure.
So basically with the animal studies, nothing was definitive. So we've got the first paper where it's a few women who are unwell after having children, and they've got completely different symptoms that don't match up at all. And then we've got the animal model where it's not going the correct route, and they're getting these huge amounts of products injected into them. It's not like they're just spraying it into their cage and they're getting unwell. It's not post-childbirth. There's no correlation into what they're actually saying GBS, how it presents in humans in the first place. And then babies, again, is a whole different story, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you think about it this way, I'll give you these statistics just to show how ridiculous it is. So 10 to 30%, and in some studies they say 20 to 35% of pregnant women, they test positive for GBS, right? So one in 3 or 1 in 10 pregnant women carry GBS. So that's a lot. 1 in 3 women carry GBS, right? And they say
half, or a third.
A third. So they say it's transient. It could be there, it could not be there, depending on the environment. So then they say 30 to 50% of babies from those parents, from that mother, pregnant mother, can become colonized with the bacteria. okay? But only one case per 2,500 to 5,000 births actually get the illness, which they call early onset GBS. So obviously, based on these statistics, if they did this, contagion studies, they wouldn't be getting people sick with GBS, because most people who have GBS aren't getting sick, right? That's what the statistics show. So they had to do these animal models.
Yeah.
Because in actual reality, people who are introduced to this bacteria are not getting sick like as they would think, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Like,
It's
again,
crazy.
like, what is the mechanism for that switch that happens? To me, that just explains that there are other factors on why a child would get sick or a mother would get sick that has nothing to
Has
do
to
with the
be,
bacteria. It
yes.
has to be, yeah.
And they have admitted to that. Like they have talked in the literature about the links between other factors and
Yeah.
it being those those babies having a higher risk of getting GBS. So then that's how they kind of twist the story again. They'll
Yeah.
say, if you've got GBS and then you have these extra risk factors, you're more likely to get the GBS disease, early onset GBS.
So just again, from a terrain perspective, the bacteria is not the one that started the fire. It's like it's like blaming the firemen for causing the disease. They're just putting the fire out, they're cleaning up. And so it's like disease tissue, something's happened, and then the bacteria actually comes in to help. And so they're not the villain at all here. We're not saying that it's not present or they don't have a role in this kind of presentation, but what we're saying is that they weren't the one that caused the disease in the first place. And I think the biggest slippery slope to this kind of thing is that if you don't acknowledge that it wasn't the germ, it was actually something else that happened in your life that had caused it, you actually don't get to the bottom of why the disease is happening there in the first place. It's a real missed opportunity for healing, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So, back to the children who actually are unwell, that 1% of children that will get sick after childbirth. What are the kind of symptoms that they experience?
Okay, so this is the really interesting part.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that babies don't get unwell, right? We're just saying that it doesn't seem like it's really to do with the GBS bacteria, because what we've shown is people who are healthy, they don't always get sick, and we don't have a lot of information on, we don't have a lot of proof that this is the cause. But what we do know is when there's a paper that talks about that babies who are diagnosed with early onset GBS, they were more likely to be associated with these things: prematurity, prolonged rupture of membranes, maternal fever during labor, and birth complications. So what I get from that is, if we just forget about the bacteria for a second, the babies who are getting sick, so they are actually getting this illness, they have these issues that are linked to them: prematurity, prolonged rupture of membranes, and fever and birth complications. So when those things occur, these are the types of symptoms that these babies are getting: breathing difficulties, like they might be feeding poorly, lethargy, temperature instability, fetal stress. So all of these things, these are the symptoms that they're getting from these babies. These are the babies that are getting sick. But the interesting link here is that when you have these birth interventions alone can cause these exact symptoms. So if we forget about the bacteria just for a second, if you're having birth interventions like vaginal examinations, you've been induced, you've had medications or like the induction medication, and you've had an instrumental delivery, maybe, like all of these things.
Your water's ruptured, force rupture. Yeah.
All of these things, all of those things cause the same issues that they're saying are caused by the GBS bacteria, right? So there's a huge crossover.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that every single baby who has these symptoms, it's because of a birth intervention. But what I've found is that it's interesting that a lot of these things may be explained by that, and that might fit for some people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go to, well, if it's not the bacteria, what is it, right? What could it be? Because I need answers. And so that's what I found in the research, is that they're already admitting that there are other things that are causing these same symptoms in babies. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
The other really important part is that when they're testing babies for bacteria, when they have sepsis, so sepsis also, I should probably say this a little bit more clearly, sepsis also has the very, very similar symptoms for babies as these symptoms for GBS.
Yes.
So that's another crossover. So sepsis is one of the symptoms that crosses over with the GBS symptoms in babies. So with sepsis as well, if they test your baby for sepsis and they can't find the bacteria, they still put those babies on antibiotics. So they're also not really clear on, even with sepsis, they can't find a bacterial cause sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's called, what was it called again?
Yeah, culture negative sepsis.
Yes.
So it's a big issue with neonatal studies. They talk about this.
And so there's two other things, is that right? That they'll say is caused by group Strep B, two other illnesses.
Oh,
for babies. I think it's meningitis.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And what was the other one? And pneumonia.
Yes. Yes, they do cross over. Yeah. So it's like a grouping of multiple symptoms, right?
Yeah.
There's no clear GBS early onset disease, right?
And the other thing is those two are the same thing. They can be culture negative.
Right, right.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, isn't it? It's like they're just saying all of these diseases could be caused by this, but there's no kind of distinctive proof that group Strep B is the cause of any of them. Exactly.
Yes. And on top of that, the same symptoms for all of these things can be caused by other things that we have evidence of.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of reasons why babies get sick, but we do have some solid, things where we know this is the cause of these symptoms for some people. So
even the symptoms that babies can have, like you said, like listlessness, trouble feeding, what were some of the other ones again? Remind me.
Like their temperature.
Yeah, that can all be anaphylaxis for injections as well. And we know that they, like, right. I'm just totally speculating here, but I know that those symptoms in a baby, that's what anaphylaxis looks like as well. Right. It crosses over with that. And children do routinely in hospitals get injections. So, I mean, like, sorry for throwing in a speculation, but it's just important to note that there's so many different things that you could apply actually to those group of symptoms that they're saying is caused by group Strep B.
100%. And I think the way we're so programmed to think, I've got this symptom, what medication do I need for it? So we go from the symptom and then we think about which medication do we need for this symptom. But I don't think the body really works like that. I think we can all be doing different things and end up with similar symptoms, but there's a personal story behind the symptoms.
Absolutely.
And so it's hard to go backwards. I know we try to. Obviously, we go, okay, something in my diet, let's change that and see if, this changes for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard because people want an answer. They're like, okay, this happened to my baby, why? And they want me to tell them, or they want, whoever else to know the exact reason. But I think it can be different from each baby and they can end up with similar symptoms. But the story is different for each baby.
Absolutely. I think it was Florence Nightingale who said something along the lines of symptoms are a result of something that could have happened like a long time ago. And it's the body, I mean, because it's the body actually, by the time a symptom's showing up, it's usually the body's going through a healing process and getting rid of whatever it is. And not to say that, I mean, especially with babies, when they have like really serious symptoms, it's 100% the most scariest thing. But yeah, one symptom doesn't necessarily automatically mean that it fits into a category of disease.
Yes.
The body expresses and expels and heals through symptoms. And it could be because, like you said, of a million different things. It doesn't equal one treatment. It doesn't equal one disease. It's different for everyone.
Yes, and I think that's why it's a little bit of a harder sell, because people want like this magic, answer. But I don't think it's as easy as that. And it takes some deep personal work and like taking responsibility for all of the different inputs that you have in your life. And that can be hard. Like there's hundreds and thousands of things, of inputs that we have. And so, yeah, it's
and
really
more now than ever.
What's that? Sorry?
More now than ever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I always go back to, and I'm sure you do as well, it's like, how am I living out of alignment with nature? That's the question I always come back to.
Yeah.
Is where can I step a bit closer to the way that I was intended to live on this earth? And that's going to be how I find the most healthy version of myself.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. It's literally that simple. And I think people have gotten really uncomfortable with being unwell. I mean, you touched on this just before. Like as soon as there's a symptom, they feel like they have to do something. And we actually have space and grace to be unwell and let that process happen. We don't need to come in and do something all the time. It would be really lovely if people could trust that being unwell is the therapy, and that there's room for you to express that and move on and heal. And I often feel, I don't know if you feel this, but whenever I have an illness or healing crisis or detox or whatever you want to call it, I actually feel better than before. Like there's something, it's meant to happen.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's after the fact too. Like for me, because of this new perspective, it's like whatever I've done to cause this, I've already done it. So I can't now just like, oh, quick, like remove this. Like the effect is the thing that is after whatever I've caused, whatever I've done to cause this effect happening. So for me, yeah, it's always every single time I get sick or go through a healing crisis, even though I believe in the terrain theory so strongly, and there's nothing I would do differently. It is really interesting to sit in your pain and discomfort, because we're not used to doing that. As children, we were probably given Panadol, and anytime we were teething or sick or with the flu, we were given medicine. So I think I find it to be a really good practice to just sit in my discomfort and my sickness and be okay with it. It's something we were never taught.
I was really lucky. My parents never took me to a doctor.
Okay.
And and they would, if I was unwell, it was rest. They'd feed certain foods. They came from a real macrobiotic kind of perspective when, in the 70s and 80s. And so it was amazing. I really noticed the difference, like having kind of been brought up that way, where it was okay to be sick and just dealt with it by resting. And especially my mum would investigate, like, what are you eating? What else is going on? And I don't get fearful about being sick. I've had that training where it's okay. I'm just going to sit here and go through the motions. But I do observe with other people, they just have, like you said, just have never had that experience, and they don't even realize that it's possible. And it absolutely is.
Yeah. And people probably see it as an inconvenience. Like, how can I get through this as quick as possible? Like, this is an inconvenience to me, rather than seeing it as like a message from your body to like slow down or to reconsider, like, what am I doing in my life? Like, why am I feeling this way? Like, what do I need to shift? So yeah, we're missing this really good opportunity to connect with our body by thinking
Yeah.
it's an inconvenience.
I hear people say that so often when I think they say it to me because they know I don't like antibiotics, but they'll say, "Oh, I had to."
Had to, yeah, I get it
I,
all the
yeah, it's either I had to this time because it was really bad, or I
I
had to
love
this
that.
time
Yeah,
because I didn't have time to get sick. And I think what people don't understand is that it is the body regenerating, detoxing and regenerating. And if you stop that process, and there's so much evidence in this, even in allopathic medicine, that as soon as you stop that process, you just put it deeper into the tissues and you have to deal with it again later. So that's, I'm sure you come from the same perspective. That's the main reason I want to live well and for a long time and to enjoy the time that I have here. And to me, stopping that kind of like temporary annoyance of being unwell and discomfort, it's going to, if I do stop it, it's going to end up me having a shorter life, reducing the quality of life. I don't want to do that. So, yeah.
100%. Yeah, I
I
totally
think
agree with
sitting
that
in discomfort for a minute to me is worth it,
for sure.
or a week.
Yeah.
Bit more than a minute.
Yeah, I get that as well. And I think I always get people say, like, I had to take antibiotics this time, it just went too far.
Yeah.
And I think, see, my model, like the model that I understand with the terrain theory is like your body's never doing something that it's not supposed to do. Like pleomorphism exists. So your body would never do, it never goes too far. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even that language, like a lot of the language is based around the germ theory, that we still think that there's some sort of imbalance or a war or like, yeah, but the way I see it is it can't be too much or too far.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you explain pleomorphism a little bit for those that don't know?
Oh,
In short. So I put
basically,
you on the
yeah,
spot.
no, that's all right. The way that I see it is that your body actually brings on and creates whatever form of bacteria or yeast or whatever it is
Yeah.
that you need. It actually responds to your environment. So it's all within you. It's not exogenous. It's not coming from the outside. You're not catching it from somebody else. Your body is actually bringing it on because it needed that exact, bacteria or whatever to deal with that environment. And it's funny because with GBS, they say it's transient. The terrain theory actually fits really well with what they've found
I
because they're
thought that too.
saying, yeah, like GBS, it's there sometimes, it's not, it's based on what environment's there. Like that's exactly what the terrain model is.
Yeah.
The bacteria change based on what is going on there in the environment.
Yeah. So whether it's so bacteria can then, if they've got a bigger job to do, they can morph into um, mold or parasites or worms or like bacteria changes. You did a really good accidental experiment
Oh, what
with
with
a
the big worm?
lunchbox.
Oh, with a lunchbox. Oh, hang on.
Do you remember?
Oh, what was that? Oh, yeah,
I think one of your kids had left something
yes,
in the lunchbox and it was closed,
yes. I
right?
forgot about that. Yeah, yeah. I love those little moments where you're like, wow, this is playing out in real life.
And you opened it
Yes.
up, and what did you find?
Was it maggots? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, it was
Mold or
maggot.
maggots?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
that
I've
happens all the
I've
time.
retold
Yeah,
this story a few times, so
I love that.
I must
I
know it
love
better
that.
than you. Yeah, so you'd had food in the lunchbox for however long, completely closed, was not open. There was no way that anything could get in. And when you opened it up, there were maggots. And so, like a little
Love it.
fly didn't come in with this suitcase and creep into the sides of the lunchbox and get in and cause maggots. The maggots appeared because there's bacteria everywhere and the banana was breaking down, and bacteria can turn into all different kinds of things. They're a vanguard species, basically.
Right.
And you see this with people when they're sick in the hospital beds and they're lying on their backs for a really long time. They can get sores and
Mm,
maggots can appear. Again, it's the flies haven't gotten under the
right.
person.
Yeah.
It's because, yeah, we need different species to break different things down. And nature is incredible like that. And that's One of the things what's so sad about this story about with germ theory that we have such a war on germs because they, like I said, that they literally kind of create life, they break down life, they are the cycle of life, and without them, we're in a lot of trouble. So yeah, it's such a shame that we have this like distorted relationship with something that's just keeps us alive and makes the whole world go around, basically.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. Yeah, and I always think of the example of one day I went out on the pathway and there was a dead worm and there were all these ants eating the worm.
Yeah,
And like with the terrain, you just see, oh, the ants have come down to scavenge that worm and bring it back. You know, they're using it as food. But if that was happening in our body, we'd be like, oh, the ants are infecting this worm and they've killed it
absolutely.
and they've just, you know, but that's not, it's all just perception, really. It's not, it's all the story, you know, it's affirming the consequent. We see something and then we are affirming what we already believe, which is that these ants are infecting this worm and killing it. But that's not actually what's happening. It's just our perception.
Yeah, yeah. They're actually doing a job, a
Yeah.
really necessary job.
And when it's in gardening, it seems obvious. But when it comes to our body, we kind of throw all those beliefs out the window and we think we're broken.
I've actually noticed sometimes with permaculture people, especially around COVID, they like really understand that whole process when it comes to permaculture, but they can never apply it to the human body, and we're just not separate from our
No,
environment.
we're exactly the same. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Do you have favorite resources that you like to give expecting mothers or
For
recommend? Sorry.
yeah, yeah. For pregnancy and birth, I found the thing that was the most important for me was like deprogramming, right? So like unlearning everything that we know about birth,
Yeah.
because that's a huge part of it. And then I think the best way to kind of connect with what is the best path for you is to speak to other women and their birth stories. Like I had a lady come over yesterday, and through speaking to her about her birth story, she told me that when she had the GBS testing in hospital, I told her we were doing this podcast and she told
Yeah.
me this story. She said,
Yeah.
oh, I had the GBS testing and it kept coming back inconclusive. So she had it a few times, it kept coming back inconclusive. And then they said, well, because it's coming back inconclusive, we've just got to put you on the antibiotics. So she was put on the antibiotics. She feels it was a huge issue in her birth and she wished it didn't go that way.
Yeah.
And so me, like, connecting with other women and their birth stories and how they found, what they could have changed, like what they wish they knew before they gave birth, those stories are really important. And so that's why I run a lot of women's circles to do with birth, because it's all linked, like the terrain theory, trusting in your body's innate ability to heal and to birth and all this stuff. It's all really linked.
Yeah.
And so for me, the sovereign birth circles that I run, I find that to be really helpful because you can connect with actual other people who have gone through um, these things, and you can judge for yourself whether that path is right for you, or do you want to follow that path? Do you want to take a new path? I think that's a really important part of our community that we're missing, is those real stories from other women and connecting with other women. Yeah, and we care too much about like what the doctor tells us and the statistics and all that, but when we listen to other people's stories, I think that's really powerful.
When I agree, when I had my second child, I had a midwife who was coming to my house. And when she'd do the sessions, the prenatal sessions, she'd spend a good 45 minutes telling me the birth stories of the women who had given birth in that week. And sometimes it was, beautiful home birth, and sometimes they'd have to emergency go to hospital. And the way that she framed each story was always around the mother, the woman, making the decision that felt right for her at that time, whatever it was. And there was no judgment or anything to do with what actually ended up happening with the birth. There was just this beautiful exchange of information about women going through this experience empowered. And it just kind of, yeah, it's so incredible just to share stories. It doesn't matter actually who thinks what or what you end up doing, or, just to bear witness without judgment is actually helps, I think, as someone about to give birth or child rearing or anything. I guess that you just don't feel as alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
that's wonderful. How often do you do those workshops?
So I do a monthly online circle for pregnant women or postpartum people who
Yeah.
just want to talk about birth and have a lot of interest in it. But obviously, a lot of topics come up in those circles, health and just like life in general. So they're really awesome. They're really great.
Can people join them at any time?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can. Yeah. And then obviously, I've got my webinar on GBS. So that's really, yeah, that's been something that I've been working on for a really long time and that I've put a lot of effort into. I would love to see people, I would love for that to reach the community that haven't looked into GBS at all. But I think a lot of my audience probably already don't believe that the germ theory is really that great.
Yeah.
So I'd love that to reach people who actually really need that information, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
hard to tap into that world because obviously they're not looking for that information right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, and I think even people who do understand terrain theory to a certain extent, I think we talked about this before, that sometimes when something comes up that's unfamiliar, you can get scared and revert back. So, like, I think whoever hears this information, it's just so wonderful because, like I said before, kind of just uncovering just how ridiculous some of these like scientific understandings that we think we have just have zero basis. It just makes people feel more empowered, which is the goal, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And just getting that confirmation of what you really believe deep down, but you haven't looked through all the papers. Sometimes it's a bit of an effort to sift through everything. So yeah, it is nice to have that confirmation without having to look into every single topic. Because I find that can be exhausting sometimes when you're like, all right, now I've got to look into this thing.
Absolutely. That's what I
So
was
many
saying before.
things.
It's so exciting that so many people are looking into all of these different areas, in the areas that kind of interest them or fit into their career, because it is impossible to go over everything. So it's so beautiful to see that there's this big collective of people like really reshaping how we think about health. It's amazing. It's a really amazing time. So, what are your favorite resources to recommend to people other than the your two that you just mentioned? So have you got any books that you like people to read?
I don't
What are
think
your favorite terrain books?
terrain books.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, I loved Can You Catch a Cold? That was great. One of the first one I read was Goodbye Germ Theory. That was like my first book.
I
I don't know
haven't
if
read
you've
that
read
one.
that. There's a lot of advice that I don't really like in it as well, but there was some good points as well.
Hmm.
I think he recommends vegetarianism in it and stuff. So there's like, yeah. But I think he's changed his perspective on that. Um, Gosh, what else? There's so many. I guess, what's your favorite? I'd love to know.
My favorite, I think Can You Catch a Cold, which kind of looks over all the contagion studies ever done. That is really mind blowing. He's like an excellent researcher, Daniel Rodas. That paired with good, what is it? The Final Pandemic by
Mhm.
Doctors Bailey, Sam, and what's her husband's name again?
Um, Mark.
Mark. Yeah, that kind of goes through all of the science around virology. I think that's really incredible. I think all of these go together. There's the new book that I'm reading, and now I can't remember. I think it's called Germs Aren't Your Enemy, and it's
Oh
by
yeah, Mark.
Marielle Ark.
Yeah.
Is that how you say her name? That actually goes into terrain theory in quite a lot of depth, which I don't think anyone else has done so well. And she is a naturopath, and I think because I've had that training, it just is really, I like the way that it's presented.
Mm.
And what's the other one? The fourth one is What Really Makes You Ill.
Yeah.
That is excellent too. And I think for me, I think those four books actually go really well together because it kind of covers all the facets a little bit. You've got going over the foundational science, but then you're also, because like you said, sometimes people go, okay, well, now what? If it's not germs, now what? And I think that Marielle Ark's book really kind of answers that question beautifully.
Yeah, yeah. I guess yeah, I love all those books as well. I haven't read Dr. Mari's yet, but I've read the others.
Yeah.
I also, because I'm a mum, I feel like I don't read a lot of books, and that's probably my issue with that question. But I love like The Way Forward, Alex Zek's podcast, and Beyond Terrain. Like I love that. I loved all of Tom Cowan's webinars and things. So
and
yeah, I do a lot of
listening.
He does really great ones.
Yeah. Sam Bailey, she has gone over like every single illness almost video by video, like the foundational science. And I remember when I first started watching her videos, I'd be like, oh, another one. It was literally every single disease that you can think of that's caused by a germ. The science around it is just so bad, and it's so interesting to see like just one after the other after the other. And they're probably some of the best. Her husband Bailey is just incredible researcher, and the work that they put out is amazing too.
Yeah, there's so much information now. It's amazing. Like when I first started looking into the terrain theory, there wasn't a lot of modern stuff. There was a lot of older stuff out.
Yeah.
Now, as you were saying, there's just so much. There's so much to look into. It's hard to keep up.
It is. I've got lots of books that are 3/4 of the way finished. So
yeah, same here.
Don't feel bad about the reading thing. You kind of get to a certain point and life takes over and you forget about it. Then you open another one. Anyway, a little bit of information is better than none, I always think. Yeah. Do you have any closing words, things that you wanted to touch on that we didn't? You can tell people how to find your work.
Yeah, sure. If you're interested in anything to do with birth, radical self-responsibility, that's a lot of stuff that I talk about currently. And I always intertwine the terrain theory and the terrain model into that, because I feel that like radical responsibility and the terrain model to me go hand in hand.
100%.
Like the terrain model is all about you taking control of your own health and you determining basically whether you want to be healthy or not. And so I find that those two concepts are really helpful to me on a daily basis. So if you're interested, if you're interested in pregnancy, birth, obviously I did a free birth and I've done a lot of speaking on natural birth and things like that. So if you want any of those types of resources, I have a lot of that on my page. And I do the...
What's your page again? I'll put it in the show notes, but just for people.
Raw Milk and Honey is my Instagram page.
Yeah.
And we do have a shop as well that my husband and I run called Shop Raw Milk and Honey, and we focus on like whole food supplements. It's probably very different to your normal supplement shop. I'm sure you can speak on this, Bell Angel. But like it's not really a supplement shop. It's more like
it's whole food supplements.
Whole foods. Yeah.
Things to support your terrain. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. So go check out the website, go check out the shop, have a look at her workshops. They're all excellent. I can't recommend it all highly enough. And thanks so much to everyone for joining in today. It was such a good conversation. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
Cool. Until next time, everyone.